Okay, but we have to do the whole interview in Italian. Is that okay? Yeah.
It's a prerequisite for this show. I sent it in the show briefing notes. Do you not read the manual?
You
Okay,
know,
everyone. I would like to welcome a very special friend, guest, and an inspiration to me, Joel Van Der Molen, over there in uh, where are you now? I can't.
sunny Hertfordshire, and it
Sunny
is sunny.
Park. Yeah,
It's very rare
I hear
that
it's
you
very
can
sunny.
say that.
So I just want to introduce. I want to introduce Joel, and I'd like him to introduce himself. But Joel is a director. He's an actor. He's a writer. He's a documentary maker. He's a commercial videographer. He's been in business most of his life. He's a father, husband, and I mean, he's just doing some incredible work out there. He does never ceases to amaze me. I think we first kind of connected when you did the What the Fact. You were just starting to do What the Fact, which we'll talk about. Had you on the show before, and I've been like a little giddy little boy, schoolboy this morning. I'm going to be speaking to my friend Joel on the show. So this is number three in the Bold in Business and Bold in Life podcast. And welcome to the show, Joel. How are you?
Well, I'm a bit upset that I didn't get the number one spot because, I'm number three. But, that's okay. I just keep working.
See,
I
listen, I
keep working
predicted
towards
that
it.
you would say that, and this is my response to that: is three is the lucky number.
Or the magic
Three is
number
magic number.
is the magic number.
Three is the magic. So I didn't want you to get
Uh,
me like number one. I was still a little bit rusty, so I needed to use a pro. Then I used someone else I'm very familiar with, and now I'm ready for someone very, very accomplished. But listen, let me explain the shirt.
No, it's great to be on, and I love this shirt. This shirt is magical.
This is my almost Austin Powers porno shirt. So look, and
This
look at the
is so
cuff,
cool.
look at the cuffs, and can you see the back? Can you
That's
see?
amazing.
Yeah. So this was given to me as a gift. We went for a client had a big Christmas do, and we went as porn stars and nuns or something. I can't remember what it was anyway. So this was my shirt, and I don't know, it's like 12 years. I've had it 12 years. So I don't get to wear it that often, and there's a reason I'm wearing this. Let's get straight into the elephant in the room, I suppose, or the most controversial work you've done, in my opinion, so far, is an all-out industry insider documentary on the pornography industry and interviews with the famous Tommy Gunn and I can't remember all the other names of the ladies because I don't know anything about that kind of stuff. So tell us, that is kind of like where you are today, but that's why I'm wearing the shirt. So tell us a little bit about fans only.
The shirt, right? You wouldn't be out of place in somewhere like Las Vegas. I could see you, fashioning that shirt in Las Vegas. And of course, Las Vegas is where I filmed a lot of Fans Only. So Fans Only, the human side of porn, something that has not been done before. Well, it's not something. It's I mean, maybe it has, but like I haven't seen anything on the mainstream that has gone into that level. Looking at the people behind the personas. And yeah, it was in January 2024, and I was working in Las Vegas. And this was the time when Gypsy Billionaire was number one on Amazon Prime, just to put that out there, Ken, in case you forgot.
No, I haven't forgotten.
Um,
It's on my agenda. I just thought, given the shirt and everything. But yeah, so you've gone to Las Vegas. You're working commercially. You're an incredible networker. You're getting around meeting people. And was it a chance connection with Tommy Gunn? Those who don't know, do you want to
well, I
say
was there was a lot of expos going on, and I accidentally found myself at the AVN Expo,
which is
which is it's like
what
it's
is
this.
AVN? What does it stand for?
So once a year, it's the biggest industry gathering of adult entertainment, and they have an expo and awards, and the awards is the equivalent to the Oscars.
Mhm.
That's what it's considered. AVN Awards is like the Oscars of adult entertainment, and then you've got XBiz, which is like the Golden Globes, and XRCO Urban X, which is coming up next month. So yeah, and that's where I met this man, Tommy Gunn. And I just coincidentally standing next to him. And so I said, "Oh, hey, how you doing?" And then he was asking about what I do. I was telling him about,
Did
the
you
Gypsy
know? Did
Billionaire
you know
project.
who he was when you were standing next to him? Or was it just some guy standing next to you? You just got chatting.
I recognized him because, unlike most people, I'm not ashamed of admitting that, I have seen porn over the past 20 years of my life at some point.
You look familiar. I see you somewhere.
I was like, dude, do we shop in the same supermarket? And he's like, so no, he was there among all these stars of this industry, and some of these people are more better known than mainstream
Well, can we just put it in
actors and
perspective?
actors.
I mean, I hope you've got these kind of figures, but in the world of internet traffic, am I correct in thinking that pornography is the daddy of all the traffic on the globe? Like the
Statistically, according to research, it's 80% of all internet traffic is porn related.
Yeah. So that's a massive amount of global activity in one kind of area. And I, like you said, what you said earlier is I'm not ashamed to admit that I am familiar with pornography. Yet it's not something that we broach very comfortably in most circles. I would say I was going to use the word impolite company, but you know what I mean? It's not something we openly talk about. We may talk about it unguardedly with close friends in general, but most people wouldn't kind of admit to it, I suppose. Or is that
Yeah, and that's something we dive into in the documentary, certainly more in episode two, is the social conditioning and people, feeling ashamed if they admit that they like it or they watch it or they follow certain performers. So, and that's come down, through um, cultural society, religion, whatever it may be, that has, we're all here, we're programmed to follow a certain set of rules and we subconsciously adhere to that. And society just adds more levels to that so that people who engage with such content, even though, as you said, yeah, as we said, 80% of all internet traffic is porn related, yet there is still a stigma, there is still this judgment and
shame?
people so therefore, and as people grow up, they're not allowed to talk about the feelings that they have, and that creates toxicity. So that's one of the themes that is explored, that it's this big taboo thing that's not allowed to be spoken about. If you remember, I remember being at school in a classroom and the teacher having a very difficult time trying to explain to a group of 20 boys about sex and what to do, and the amount of ums and ers that and hesitations that this teacher had, that I think one boy actually said to him at one point, do you reckon you can get through the next sentence without a single or so why? So it's really that, why has something that has all got us here so taboo to talk about and so difficult for people to really talk about when it's something that they should perhaps be talking about? So there's a lot of this that we kind of explore, and I went on an Access All Areas journey led by Tommy Gunn, and we have some phenomenal cast, people that would the major contributors. We got Alexis Texas, Emma Hicks, Alexis Fox, Sherry DeVille, um, among many others, who provide such an intelligent view of this world that people know very little about. There's many documentaries being done on the industry, but anything I've ever seen in the mainstream has always pointed the finger, look at the dark side, never looked at the humans behind the personas. And that's exactly what Fans Only does. It's Fans Only, the human side of porn. It's on Amazon Prime. And it's now in the top 10, I believe. We went to a couple of days ago.
Well, congratulations for that. And one of the things that we were talking about as well the other day was about the operational time of getting something like a documentary done, and then there's the touch time, the actual work you do, the work you're doing on it, and how long it takes overall. And we consume that piece of work in like less than an hour. We've consumed it all, and we're used to it now, obviously, aren't we? With box sets and Netflix and Prime and YouTube. there's massive amounts of content being consumed. I mean, do you kind of, when you look at the amount of work that goes into something or a documentary, not specifically about fans only, but it's a massive amount of travel, preparation. I suppose it's getting people and equipment to places. And I mean, tell us a little bit about what that endeavor takes. I mean, yeah. I mean, give some
Well,
insight.
you've got to love what you do, otherwise you would be crazy. But that's entrepreneurs, isn't it? We are two things, really, crazy not enough to see the hurdles that we're going to have to, jump over, but stupid enough to go ahead and do it anyway.
Yeah.
But innovative and thinking forward, and you've got to have a vision. Whenever I come up with a project, whenever I see a documentary, I can see the end vision. That is what drives me. That what helps me get over all of the obstacles and the speed bumps that you may come across along the way. And they're always going to be there. But when it comes to documentary and I think film as well, I don't see these things as in your way. They're on the way. They're part of the process. And certainly with documentary, it can lead you into many different avenues because it's not scripted. So you're not working from a script. Yeah, you can plan a lot out and have an idea of what you want to cover, but when you interview someone, you don't know the direction that's going to take you
Mm,
or what important element that you're going to touch upon and how deep that conversation is going to go and where that's going to lead. And I interviewed somebody last week. It was Tanya Tate, and it started to get really kind of deep on a level of, what is happening by societal design where people are programmed and conditioned to live their life in a certain way. They're told what to do and end up becoming people pleasers, accepting that the norm is all they have and their reality. So to think outside of that, to break that shell, but to help people understand that why they can't talk about these certain things or share how they're truly feeling for fear of what other people think of them. So when you go into avenues like that, I believe you're helping people to feel that they're not alone, and you're being a mirror to help people reflect back because people can't be told what to do. If someone tells you to do something, you immediately reject that telling. If someone's told me to clean the kitchen, well, it's really like the last thing I want to do. It's just like, oh, you aggravate me. I'm gonna go and run a mile. And it's the same in life, and people, certainly those that are too close, like family, cannot comment on each other because it's just not going to be heard. Whereas an outsider coming in will be given more time than a loved one. When people watch documentary or film, you can absorb the information and reflect back on your own situation from what you're seeing on screen. And that's what I do for a lot of my work is I love to inspire. And I think filmmaking gives me that gift.
yeah, I mean, obviously, I've seen various offerings of your work, and one of the things that even I'll say even what the fact, Gypsy Billionaire, OnlyFans, and then obviously, sorry, fans only. So this was given to me by a client that I worked with years ago for a fancy dress type party event, and
But you wouldn't be out of place on, like in a bowling alley. I think that would look good. Like, you've seen the Big Lebowski turn up in that, or in Las Vegas, no one would bat an eyelid, you know.
I'll wear it. I'll tell wear it out next week in Famagusta and see what kind of response I get. Probably people like, are you hot in that?
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
Potter's Bar
So
might
just
be
go. I
interesting.
think there's some really interesting elements. Something you said earlier on. The things don't get in the way. What did you say? They're not getting
But
in the way.
yeah, wherever you do, you're going to come across, hurdles, speed bumps, whatever you want to call them, obstacles, but they're not in your way. They're on your way.
They're on your way.
Yeah, they're just pushing you into the direction of who you truly want to become,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
vision. And you may be upset by it in the first place because you can't see what that's leading you to. And a classic example of this is I worked with this wonderful director of photography on Fans Only. But it was very interesting how I met him because I met him at the AVN Expo and I saw him going around with his camera in Las Vegas and I was like, oh wow, cool setup. But I was working in Las Vegas. I was doing another filming at an expo. I was working with one guy who at the last minute let me down, and it was like the night before the show, and
Mm.
I was kind of down, and I was like, thinking, but even though I've done a lot of work on myself, and I was like thinking, okay, what is this teaching me? What is this? What is this gonna bring me? Um, and I immediately just messaged this guy that I met, and he said, yeah, of course, I'll do it. Not only did he do it, he was better and much more willing. And he's the one who became the director of photography on Fans Only. Whereas the other guy, who was just trying to, you know, be difficult or didn't think he was getting the value from me, missed the opportunity.
Mm.
So, and I was feeling down by that. But then this guy turned out to be wonderful for us and is working and has just been working with us on Fans Only 2, which we've completed filming now.
So one could argue, like let's say the lessons of this is that there's destinal resolve, and I think something you said right at the beginning that I adhere to is what is is keeping true to the vision, working towards that outcome. One might call that the Merlin principle, where you kind of live life backwards. You kind of throw yourself out 2 years, 3 years, or towards the end of the completion of the project, and think, right, what do I need to do? Move it, coming back to the present day to mitigate that commitment and realize that vision. And I think what I hear in what you're saying is like let destiny do its part as well, because it's not all down to you. You don't have to have it all worked out. What was it they say? Jump over the edge and work it out on the way down. Like, because if we're going to work it all out before you take a move, then you're going to be forever paralyzed or imparalyzed.
And yeah, and I do believe we're taught the opposite of what is really at work. So people would wait until the money comes to do a business venture. I believe it's the opposite. I believe you go ahead and do the business venture and trust that the money will come. And that's with every project that I've worked on, whether it's What the Fact or Gypsy Billionaire. There's nothing going to stop me from doing it.
So where does that
Yeah.
where does that resolve in you come? I mean, I know we said about having a vision, but there's a tenacity there, isn't there? There's a bit of TTU, like trust the universe, or what is it? Is it throw your cap over the wall and go get the cap? I mean, how do you kind of, for those that have our audience watching that they're dealing with something that they're not quite committing to, how do you kind of go? And we had Saikin on the last show, and he's done a thousand impromptu talks. Just wherever on the tube, on the bus, in the square, like all sorts of places. And I said, what do you do just before you take that action? What, and how would you explain that for you, Joel? Because what you are doing is quite, there's a level of you climatize to it because I'm not doing, but then there's another level is it must take something. What is that something?
Well, it's finding your calling.
Hmm.
Every single person knows what they would love to do. They just don't know that they can do it. We all know from a young age what we want to be. I knew from the age of 4, 5 that I loved everything about acting, and that went further into writing, into directing, into producing, into set building, whatever it may be, anything involved in that kind of creative expression through artistic mediums, theatre. It started when I was, young. And yeah, life pushes you around and you end up going down avenues that to please others, whether that be that university degree, whether it be that normal 9 to 5 job, or setting up your own business. And I fell into that category and I put aside the acting and creating, and I set up a telecoms company and I had it for 10 years. Now, even though I did that, the creative spark kept coming through. So I created phone system tutorial videos, broadband videos. So the creative element kept coming, tapping me on the shoulder. And then, I the universe conspires in ways to help you on your path to who you're here to become. And so I did sell the business of telecoms and move into documentary filmmaking.
Mm,
Documentary filmmaking also lends itself very nicely to corporate advertisements as well, because now corporations would hire the directors to create these kind of works that you see on their websites and YouTube channels because they value it now. Couldn't have the conversation 10 years ago, but now they place a much higher value, especially in America, which is where I would do 90% of my work now. Um, yeah, to create those kind of work. So through the corporate work and through documentaries, I created another business which is much more aligned with who I am.
mm.
And doing the documentaries and things like What the Fact are stuff that I believe in. So that
I mean, just
really
we mentioned what the fact earlier. I've had you on a number of times before, specifically around what the fact. So how do you describe and explain what the fact to our audience?
now What the Fact I've just relaunched as a vertical series.
Wow, what is a vertical series?
Right. So now there is billions of pounds worth, billions of whatever you want to call it, pounds, euros, dollars, investment going into vertical productions. Now there's things like reel shorts and I can't remember the other one. There's quite a few reel shorts and drama box. You go onto one of these things and they're kind of like vertical dramas, getting
So
serious
let's
amounts
just
of views.
explain. Vertical is this, isn't it? It's the phone.
Shot this way.
It's that aspect
Shot
ratio. It's that aspect ratio, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's shot in 9 by 16 instead of 16 by 9, which is what Zoom is at the moment. And that is for the Gen Zs, that's for the 13 to 30-year-olds who are used to watching this and will spend 2 to 3 hours a day scrolling instead of um, putting on something on Netflix. So Netflix are coming out with vertical shorts, and think people like Robert De Niro are investing in studios that are set up specifically for this. So what the fact that I did make, and I remember at the time I wanted to do it vertical.
Did you?
Yeah, I said, can it be both?
Right.
I remember saying to the DOP, the director of photography, I said, can we shoot it for both mediums? He was like, no, it's better widescreen. Everybody's going to watch it, whatever. But now
Hmm.
vertical has become a huge um, thing. And maybe not for a certain audience, because if you're above 40, you're going to have like, you're not really going to think, oh, okay, I'll watch something like that. Imagine going to the cinema.
Yeah, I'm watching it like it just doesn't it doesn't seem it just seems wrong, doesn't it?
But because everything is going here, so yeah, What the Fact is now a vertical series, and I was just exploring to see what I've made so far would warrant in this time um, a remake, updated or continuation if you like. But there's many ways that it can go. What the Fact that
I mean,
I've got so
is that a
much in my brain.
re-edit? Is that a re-edit, manual re-edit? I mean, are you leaning into AI editing software, or like to break the back of it, or how are you approaching that? Because it sounds like a lot of work.
Um, it's what you well when you resize stuff, you've got to go into an editing software and make because if I'm over this side of the screen, you've got to move the screen. So there was a bit of
Basically,
that
you're
to
cropping and chopping all the time, the actual focus of the
yeah,
camera.
and a lot of people are watching on silent.
Wow,
Uh,
really
which is yeah. So I've burnt in the text, the subtitles, so people can watch in silent.
incredible. So, what the fact was, I think it was about the time you and I kind of started to connect. We'd met earlier,
2020.
and you started to do what the fact, and it was during the COVID era, and you wrote this sitcom. I think how many did you do? Three.
I wrote three but produced two. We
Just
we
two
we got
ones.
as far as two,
Yeah,
and that I could go back to it. I was looking at feature film, but now vertical.
yeah. But so you were telling the story of this guy called Henry, is that right?
Close, Edward.
Edward.
Yeah, but anyway, yeah,
You can learn from this, everyone at home. Do your research.
it's this guy who's expounding his ideas and beliefs about a globalistic agenda to enslave humanity and reduce the population to 500 million.
Yeah, sounds
But
crazy
his
to me.
wife thinks he's lost the plot. She's cleaning the house wearing a spacesuit and is convinced the cat's got coronavirus.
Yeah. And there's this scene, I'll tell you, this is, I mean, it was this point, I think, do you know when someone does something and you go, this guy completely gets it? So there's this scene where Edward walks through the house, he's been out, and she makes him take all his clothes off and go up to the bathroom because there's this terrible virus out there. And it actually happened to me. And I was looking at that thinking, wow, this guy's in my world, definitely. And at that time, to be fair, there's not many people that got it in the way we already got it. You know, when it was happening, we already knew what, you know, we had a view of what was happening. We can't propose to say we knew the truth of the matter, but we had a good idea that this was not what the mainstream media were out there to kind of convince everyone of.
Yeah,
And
do you know
that was refreshing.
what's interesting is the re-release of it, which I posted out today, on the likes of it's gone on YouTube and it's on Instagram, is that now, because yeah, people we knew what was going to happen, but now that episode was shot in 2020, released in probably 2021,
Yeah,
but
I think
people
it
did
was,
not.
yeah, just early 21, I think.
So now people looking back will go, "Oh my God,
How
were
pro
they right about?
how
Were they right
pathetic.
about
Yeah.
this, that, whatever, you know?"
It might end up more valuable now than it was at the time because those who got it. It was, and it wasn't meant for them, was it? It was really meant for those who didn't get it.
Yeah, but now I think there's a lot of people who are going to say they were right about that, they were right about that, they were right about that,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of information in there.
Yeah, there is.
And
There is.
so, you know, it'd be interesting to see uh, how it's picked up. And then, of course, there's more to do with it. I would love to do this, is to explore loads of other themes and ideas which are happening now, and not just happening now, but what is gonna happen.
Yeah.
Like, for example, you know, and
Yeah,
people say I'm crazy about this because I wrote in What the Fact 3 that, you know, they're planning an alien attack,
yeah.
you know, and they're just going to say, keep putting in the media that the aliens are, you know, coming and all of this. And then they're going to decimate entire populations, um, and blame it on aliens, all in the media.
What a great
Um,
theatre.
so
So I want to change the
there's so,
subject a little bit. I want
so
to change.
much to do with that.
Yeah, I want to change. Well, we kind of changed that, but I want to kind of take a different angle. One of the things that I wrote in the brief on the on Business Bold was that we are living in a time where we're exposed to so much information, whether it's mainstream, whether it's going down the rabbit holes and going off piste. And one of my mantras is always do research, do research. It's how do we mitigate a business life and a personal life with the current global and local agendas? I mean, how do you mitigate it, considering you've already I mean, I think it's wonderful how you've expressed it in your art, but in day-to-day life, do you kind of like trying to, you know, like, oh, you know, it's going on, or I don't know, how do you view it? Or
Well, you know, I've been through, for the past 12, 13 years, been through every kind of you know, emotion, if you like, when it comes to what's happening. And yes, it's upsetting, and you know, it can, you know, really get to you. Um, and so, you know, but this is going to happen, and there's things outside of us that are going to happen that are beyond our control. What is in our control is what we do.
hmm,
And so that's why you can get upset and angry, but all that is a reflection of what's going on inside of you. So I just point the finger back and I say, okay, well, how would I use, if I can use my creativity to help people to awaken what's truly happening beyond the behind the scenes, behind the curtain, then I'm doing something good. If I can inspire somebody and help someone, then that's a great thing to do. And if you can have fun at the same time and do what you love, well, then you never work again. So, you know, you can think about these things all day long, but it's not going to help you. And at the same time, we do live in this constructed world, and it is constructed, and we all have to play the game of money.
yeah,
So we have to get on with something. If you can find what it is you love, well, then you're going to enjoy yourself a lot more. Um, that's if I could give a message to anybody, it is to find what it is that you love doing. And if you haven't found it yet, keep looking. But most of us know, we just don't know that it's possible, that it can be done.
We kind of see other people living that life maybe, and it look from that angle, it looks all kind of, I don't know, it looks easier or rosy, or oh, they're lucky. I mean, we're talking about how people say to me, "Oh, you're lucky, that I live in North Cyprus. I get to go to the beach quite often. I'm live quite an outside lifestyle." And people say, "Oh, you're lucky." And I said, "Lucky had very little to do with it." And it took a lot of tenacity, a lot of went through a lot, especially when I first drove out from England back in end of 2020, and it was full lockdown. Vaccines were on the way, roadblocks, PCR tests. It was like you have to do I don't know. There's something about that destinal resolve that kind of keeps you going. Was it Churchill that said it's the success comes when you go from one failure to another failure unaffected, or so? I'd have ruined the quote,
Well,
but So
I
how do you
think everyone sees the trophies, but no one sees the training. If you look at anybody's Instagram, and this is the problem of living in an Instagram world, is everybody's looking at people having fun. No one's posting anything negative. Instagram is something where you're putting your best foot forward. And if you look at mine, I'm not posting about the hours of editing that I'm doing or how long an interview is taking. I'm posting the awards, posting the red carpet. I'm at Cannes Film Festival. I'm in
so,
LA,
so
and
in a way we're all complicit, aren't we? I mean, like if we sat down and really talked about the pain and the suffering and what goes into. I mean, creativity is I mean, like Van Gogh's cut his ear off, in the pain of creativity, and I mean, I'm not sure there's more to it than that, but there's a lot of suffering, a lot of I guess there's a lot of not just creativity and creating, but living on your own wits, creating your own income. You don't have you have to create. I imagine you have to orchestrate all of that and create a product and create a facade. I mean, if you told people really how difficult it is, I mean, when have you had your most? Maybe we touch on it. You kind of opened it. I mean, when have you had your moments? I mean, I've recently shared a video that I did in a talk I did in 2018, sharing my utter despair, and resignation, and just absolutely. I described it, it's like a balloon that had no more air left. There was nothing left in me, and I called the turn from there. I've termed it resilience. It's like that in a way gives you the ingredients and the seeds to rebuild and redesign yourself. I mean, I'm sure you must have hit that wall many times.
oh well, maybe, yeah. It's just with every failure comes a seed of opportunity, and it's there's nothing else to do but just to keep going. But everybody has it. No one has it easy. Not even if you're born into, you know, uh, with all the wealth that you could imagine. Jim Carrey said, "I wish everybody could have everything they ever wanted to realize that that's not it." The ego always desires what it doesn't have. So, and that's what we go after. Now, that's not a terrible thing. It's just, it keeps you alive, it keeps you driven. But ego balanced with the heart and being heart led is something that, you've got to balance. Because whenever I've made an egotistical decision,
Which
it's
I'm sure you have.
backfired. It's backfired. But when you live from that place of the heart, it's very different. I mean, how many people, I think we can all, looking back, how many times have people said, "Oh, I made that decision, but if I look back, I knew deep down that it wasn't the right thing to do." So imagine living from that place of deep down, which is your inner voice speaking to you, but it's just we don't listen to it because it whispers. We listen to the voices from outside, and we listen to our ego head saying, "Oh, if I could just get that Instagram picture of myself on Miami Beach." I did this actually, so I can relate.
But there's a time to share
You
the
know, I'm learning.
spoils, isn't there? There is a time to go, "Da-da, look, mum, I did it." And on that note, I wanted to, lights just suddenly changed on my. On that note, I wanted to ask you about your mother, because your mother was an entrepreneur, wasn't she? Do you mind me going here?
That's cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
she
So your
was.
mother, just tell
I
us a
get
bit
it from.
about, because you grew up in a entrepreneurial household. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I think a lot of people follow in their parents' path because their parents are the ones that talk to them. And if your parents have gone to school, gone to university, gone and got safe, secure jobs, well, that's what the parent is going to plant into the child's brain, whether the child likes it or not. Some can break free. Luckily, yeah, I did have two entrepreneurial parents, and so I followed in that path naturally. So I wasn't, school was never, I'm not going to be an academic, but most people who go to school, the people who get A's work for the people who get C's, because the people who get C's
Bees,
or lower create the corporations, create the businesses that the A students work for,
for
and
sure.
people who get B's work for the government
Yeah. And those who can't, was it those who can't do teach and those who can't teach do photography, as Woody Allen once said, I think.
or do games.
Okay.
But so yeah, look, I didn't have I had a good upbringing, very fortunate upbringing. Parents gave me everything that they could to all their kids, and so yeah, Mum was coming up with ideas all the time,
Yeah,
and
just
she
tell us a
did
bit
have
about,
some.
yeah, tell us about what your mum did, because she did, if you don't mind.
Yeah, she created, if you like, the first sandwich delivery company in the 60s called Snack Services. And this was, menus would go out to all the offices, people would phone up and place their order, and it became so big. And it started the revolution in food, but she sold it and got, had was started having children. So that put a stop on that, where it could have been it's astronomical.
Yeah,
But then after that, she created eco products. So she was started. Well, she had a herbal tonic business. She grew that, and then the eco products business she built, and that became a multinational.
wonderful. Wow.
And she kept going even in the face of illness. She died in 2009, but she never stopped.
Again, that
As
was
soon
her
as one
passion.
business would fail, another one would start. And I
Serial
used to
entrepreneur.
watch this and I thought, wow, you know, she just lost the business and it was quite disheartening to lose one. But then to see her back at the desk at her office in the house the next day, literally doing something new and going off again, and I remember seeing that and I was like, okay,
Mm.
wow. So you don't stop because it's you everybody thinks okay they're going to get that big break and I do as well. I think, oh, can I just put out Gypsy Billionaire and then can I just live off the royalties, please? No. Oh, okay. No. Okay.
No,
Right, I'll do something else. Okay. What have I got to do now? Fans only. Okay. I work with some of the most famous people in the world. Can I stop working? No. Okay. I'll put out two. Um,
wasn't there talk of, I don't know if this is proprietary or anything we can't talk about, but if it is, I'll edit it out, I suppose. But there was talk of Gypsy Billionaire being made into a feature film.
yeah, we'll do that.
Or is that always being talked about? I mean, I suppose these
I
projects are.
think at first that's how it started. It was originally going to be a feature, a film, and but I brought the cameras in. I thought let's just capture it all anyway. And then I think it was Alfie that said to me, the gypsy billionaire Alfie Best, who said, "It's a lot cheaper to do a documentary and then do a feature film."
Yeah.
Uh,
But Alfie's story is quite remarkable, isn't it? A gypsy born on the roadside, as I've heard you say. Well, I've seen the documentary a couple of times. And you know, through that tenacity, through that, I mean, you tell us. I mean, how do you see Alfie and the elements that got him to where he got to? Because not everyone can do that, can they?
well, Alfie, I mean, look, I had to, again, it's one of those things I had to do it. I could not say no. As soon as I heard born in a caravan on the side of the road and becomes the richest gypsy in the world, I was like, why has this not been done?
Yeah.
So
Do you kind of
I
when you
wa-
hear something like that, you look around, if it am I being set up here? Because it's too, it's too you know.
so I met Alfie, and then it still took 6 months later. Then we had to before we could decided to make a start. and I worked really hard at it. Worked really hard
Again, you
to
got camera
produce.
side as well. Again, in that, didn't you?
Yeah, I wasn't going to be originally, but my edit producer changed it around at the end and said, "No, let's bring you in so you guide the story along." And yeah, so that was the right thing to do. Um, and no, that was a surprise success. I mean, it's number one on Amazon Prime for 6 weeks.
Fantastic, man.
It got a
Fantastic.
lot of news coverage, and it's still doing very well. And we won an
Imagine
award
if your
recently.
editing gets really good, you do really well.
Yeah, if I could work a bit harder, perhaps. You know,
I'm sure because I did a bit of editing yesterday, right? And I was sitting there, I was thinking, God, I wonder what Joel goes through, because I was, we had the show, I didn't get to do it, we didn't finish it. It's like, I bet you must look at it. I don't know, quite often editors and directors say, I never watch anything I make because, like, once it's done, I just want to see the back of it or whatever. But you must watch it and go, God, I've got that bit I could have done that different. Or are you
well,
re-editing it when you're watching it? Or by the time it goes out, you've seen it enough times.
by the time it goes out, I'm happy with it.
Hmm.
Otherwise, it wouldn't go out.
Yeah.
But I'm still not going to spend 2 years on it, as I've heard some people do. So,
Yeah, but that's
you
something else. That's like such a level of perfectionism that you can't let it go. But for you, it's a piece of work. You've done the work. You've given it your all, and it has to go. There's like a time for it. You know,
yeah.
in
And
letting
of
go of
course,
something as opposed to
yeah, people are always gonna say, oh, I would have liked it if I'd seen this, or, you could have done this with it. And okay, sure, yeah. But at the end of the day, you do what you do with what you have.
yeah, yeah,
And we compiled something that was inspirational, and that was really the vision I had,
yeah,
was to show the inspirational side of Alfie, because be spending time with him, that's what I picked up. Seeing him on stage in his talks, I wanted to bring that to a wider audience to inspire others.
yeah,
And I believe that on that level,
yeah.
it
Yeah.
was a success.
So one would argue, in my terms, I would say that it's a context-driven piece, and the context has been delivered. And then there's the technical aspects of it. There's the videoing, the editing, the color code, what do you call it? Color
Grading.
grading, and then there's sound, and then there's all the things you've got to do. And I guess that is part of packaging all those different elements in a way that you can go, right, this is ready to go. Let's move on to the next project. Now, next project, as far as I'm aware, are you still working on the Gypsy Kings documentary?
Oh, yes, of course. Yeah, Gypsy Kings. So a phone call from the manager of the Gypsy Kings saying, "Oh, we watched the documentary 3 times. They watched Gypsy Billionaire 3 times. You interested in doing something with the Gypsy Kings?" And once I'd fallen over and then I picked myself back up and I was like, yeah, we'll have a look at that. And it took a few months to, sort out, but then we got started. And It's God, it's incredible. So I was following them around the world on tour. The music is out of this world. It's got such soul, the gypsy soul, um, and I don't think I've heard any music that has such passion in it. I think is the word, but soul. And at the heart of the group is Tonino Baliardo, who composed all those wonderful songs that we know and love, Bamboleo, Jobi Joba, the arrangements. So we spoke about the Big Lebowski, in the film Big Lebowski, where Jesus does the bowling ball.
Yeah,
Well, that
he licks the
music,
bowling ball, doesn't he?
so the music is to that classic cinema scene,
Yeah,
is the Gypsy Kings cover of Hotel California,
yeah,
which is
yeah.
just amazing. And they did Toy Story 3. They did a cover of You've
One
Got a
of my one
Friend
of
in
my
Me.
one of my favorite films is Big Lebowski.
Well, yeah, the dude.
Would
And
you? Yeah, go on. Sorry.
yeah, and the Gypsy Kings, of course, were a big part of that. Musically invited to play, Warner Brothers invited them to do this song. So their music is, it's a global phenomenon. It's the first kind of, because they're singing in Catalan and Spanish flamenco. Never before really had that transcended borders and languages to be in the top 10 and, winning Grammys in America.
Listen, I remember the first time I heard Gypsy Kings. I remember it like yesterday. I was with a cousin of mine, older cousin. We were in Mount Olympus in Turkey, Bursa area. Uludağ, they call it in Turkish. Mount Olympus is its kind of international name. And we're in a ski resort out of season. And we were going there to start a travel business to create package tours to ski resorts in Turkey. And I was 19, maybe 20. So this would have been 1988, maybe 1987. And we're in the bar. And I don't know if, well, you wouldn't know this, but then some football teams go to these areas. They do high altitude training because out of season they can train and and so we had this whole I can't remember what the football team was there, and we're getting really drunk in the bar, right, really on it, and suddenly this da 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 da, that voice and that music, and they all knew what it was, and I was like, what is this music? It's amazing. And that was the first time I heard of Gypsy Kings. It's like it's such a it is a such a to be a band and to be very distinctively every time you hear them, you know who it is. That's incredible. So what are the kind of what has that given you in the insight of the world of sort of like global entertainment, internationally renowned music bands? I mean, I'm sure there's some very interesting insights into how they keep those shows on the road.
Well, they're still going, they're still touring, they're still extremely popular, filling arenas. I'm going to see them on Tuesday next week. We're going to France, where west coast of France, where they're performing. I think they're performing with Kool and the Gang.
Are they? Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
get me a ticket. Gotta get me. I come.
Jungle Boogie,
I
jungle.
love calling again.
Yeah, so but at the heart of it is this sound of family, and that rings through the whole piece. Now, of course, we've got a new generation of the sons and even the grandson of Tonino, who I met, who are being handed the baton, if you like. And so it's probably the only band that's going to live on for generations because the whole family are involved and
Wow.
still and playing now with Tonino on as he does his tour. They're in the US at the moment.
Wow,
So
that's
it's a
actually
lot
quite
got a lovely family element to it, and that's what it always has had, and it's just very special. The log line of the film, because I don't know if many people know this, but um, what do we say? Yeah, discovered by Bridget Bardot, busking on
Mm.
the streets of Saint-Tropez.
Wow, that doesn't get more romantic, does it?
A poor gypsy family from Montpellier become the flamenco kings of the world. So yeah, I mean, Bridget Bardot was there, and she invited them to play at her house where she was having a party, and then after that, other stars would invite them to play. But it wasn't until again, this was in the late 70s, but it took another 10 years, perseverance, and loving what you do, because Tonino doesn't pick up the guitar for 10 hours a day unless he really loves it. 10 years later, they have a hit with Bamboleo.
Wow.
I think that was the first major hit. And then Volare, Joe Joe Bar, Bailame.
When they say it takes 10
Um,
years to become an overnight success, and then you've kind of nailed that principle. So one of the things is that I think it was Anthony Robbins I heard. I think I'm not that Anthony Robbins is the first person to say it, but he said, people overestimate what they can do in 1 year and underestimate what they can do in 10. And we always have these kind of very short. I had this kind of another 18 months, another 18 months, another 18 months. And now I'm kind of, I mean, it's taken me all this time in this stage in my life to go, oh, I've got more of a 10-year plan. I've got a plan now for me for around 65, 70. And it's like it just takes off the pressure. And I think, when you're younger, you're always pushing and driving. And I think it's something that I hear in the way you go about these projects, Joe. Is like you're letting destiny take its part. You're doing your part. You're doing your part. You're doing the actions. You're traveling. You're meeting people. I think you mentioned earlier on that not today, yesterday, that you actually bumped into Tommy Gunn standing somewhere and turned around and just had a chat with this bloke. I don't know if you even knew who he was at the time. Maybe you didn't. Maybe you did. But the point is taking those opportunities without like a I don't know, like a desperation, like you've got to make it. I talk to people now about opportunities. I'm like, just having a chat. I'm not attached. I'm committed to doing something, but I'm not attached. And I'm like, oh, well, I'll explore it and let's see if there's a fit. And whatever will be, kind of thing. Do you find that's come with time, or were you kind of a lot more younger? When you were younger, you're a lot more driven, a lot more maybe impetuous and impatient.
I think, yeah, always impatient. And I don't, people say, oh, you've got to be patient. No, you don't. I'm impatient. I want to do it now, but I want to get it done. And that's what drives me. Um,
There's a difference between being impatient and getting it done now and being intentional. So I hear you're intentional.
I mean, being patient and sitting back and doing nothing is one thing.
Ah, well, that's not what I mean.
Um, you know, but you can be impatient or for success. You want to see you want to see yourself succeed, and you want to keep going until you get there.
So could you say that's kind of like an urgency? Like, like there's something to be done, do it, get it done. Don't sit on it, don't fester.
Yeah, if you see something, quite right, then you go ahead and you do it. You don't wait for an opportunity. You look for the opportunities. So when you talked about me seeing Tommy Gunn, the only reason that I met him was because I had corporate work. And this is why, you think, oh, I love doing the documentaries and the films, and the corporate work is something that, well, something, you got that
Pays
pays
the
bills,
bills.
right? Okay. But it's not to be dismissed because it's through that corporate work that leads you to what you truly want to be doing.
But it's like chop wood, carry water in the context of what you're committed to. Yeah, keep taking action in the area that you're committed to, whether that's doing corporate work, documentaries, writing and producing your own your own sitcoms. So it's all in the same discipline, but you're moving the project forward, and you've got bills to pay, from what I understand.
Yeah,
You don't have
yeah,
a
yeah.
trust fund, do you?
Apparently.
If you have a
Um,
trust fund that I'm not aware of, I'd like you to tell me about it. But but even if you have a trust, well, I'm just not going to trust. But you've got family, you've got bills, you've got there's travel costs. There's all sorts of costs in life now, and I guess now more than ever, like cost of living has risen considerably. So there's that pressure in the background, I'm sure.
every pressure. And when you're 40 something, no one cares about you. It's just how you get on with it. You're 40 something. If you're 70, they kind of let you off. Or if you're 20, it's like you're still learning. But in your 40s and 50s, you get on with it. And you're actually dealing with aging parents and children growing up.
Yeah.
So there is pressure. And at this time, you're trying to foresee your future and provide a kind of like a nice experience for yourself when you get above a certain age. So, this is an interesting time. And it's the time where you're supposed to be the most creative and the most
You,
expressive.
you still have energy, you still have insight, you've got a lot of experience, you've made a lot of mistakes, you've learnt some amazing lessons by the time you're, like you said, 45, 50, or whatever it is. So you've got it's kind of you're at your peak, aren't you, in some ways? I mean, you can be at your peak throughout your life, at the peak of that stage of your life. And that's how I see it. It's like, lean into all that experience, lean into all those learnings. The other thing I think that when you get to a certain, you've got a large network, people because you've been around. You've been around, you can pick up the phone and get something done, or hey, Joel, do you know anyone that can XYZ? And all that, like, you've invested in those relationships, and you've made, and I assume this is the case for you as well, you've made quite fundamental mistakes or gone down some avenues that are unworkable, and you've had to kind of put it back in reverse, beep, 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 go back again, you know.
Well, I
Um,
heard someone say that, if you don't look back and say, oh, I was an idiot, then you're still the idiot.
okay, so listen, we've done that almost an hour. Um, any last words for our audience? Any last thoughts? Is there anything that you felt we should have covered that we didn't cover?
Um, Watch Fans Only on Amazon Prime.
I'll put the link
And
up.
let us know your thoughts. That's quite a different take on adult entertainment. And Gypsy Billionaire is there as well, and you can see what I'm up to on Instagram.
I'll put the
And
link
you
below.
can even watch Erkan on my Instagram pop up every now and then.
Joel,
But yeah, it's been wonderful. Thank you.
yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time to join me. Thank you. Apologies for yesterday's delay. So look, listen, I'd like to say to our audience, we're just building momentum, and I really want to thank Joel and all our guests that have joined us so far. I'm lining up a few more for next week, and I'll be working on that. If you like what you're seeing, please feed back to me. Let us, if you're interested in connecting with Joel, please do so, and share it, like it, comment, give us an idea of what you'd like me to ask future guests. And I want to thank Joel and you for watching. So take care. Bye, everyone. So this is a little supplementary clip. So Joel and I kept the call going, and we were just chatting, and we are talking this idea of attracting what you want out of life. But come on, tell us what you just said, Joel.
Yeah. Well, it's not, you can wish for that thing that you desire, that whether it's that amount of money, whether it's that, but it's not about that. It's about wishing to become the person that can handle that level of responsibility, that level of money. Because if you want to be Alfie Best has is a billionaire, but believe me, a billion problems come with that.
Hmm.
And how can you've got to become the billionaire who can deal with that? Yeah, mentally, emotionally, everything. It takes a lot to do that. That's why most people who make a lot of money lose a lot of money because
Yeah,
they don't become the person.
yeah. They don't hold the being that goes with that level of
And
operating or
it's not
whatever.
wishing for the thing, it's wishing to become the person that can
Yeah.
that can manage the thing, the desire, what it
So
is.
there's a supplementary lesson, everybody. Be I suppose that as Mandela said, be the change you want to see in the world. But walk like, talk like, act like what it
An
is you're trying
Egyptian.
to become. Yeah.
Walk
Thank you.
like, talk like an Egyptian. But also, if you want something badly enough, you're not ready for it.
Hmm.
And people have the right to reject you. That's another learning.
Yeah, that's a great one. Yeah. Some do, some don't. So what?
But it always pushes you to, go to where you're valued.
Hmm.
I'm not valued in the UK. My work is seen as that they just don't get it. We come from a nation of inventors who don't value marketing. There's no point in me trying to sell corporate video to people who don't value it. But you go to America, you're much more appreciated and welcomed and valued because that's what they get it.
Hmm.
And in Europe as well. So 90% of my work is America, the rest is Europe, but a very, very small percentage is the UK. And if it
And I'm
is the
sure I'm
UK,
sure
then
you
they
could do
tend to
some.
work in.
I'm sure you could do some videos in North Cyprus. We're waiting for you to come.
Yay, North Cyprus.
And on that note, supplementary lessons over.